welcome to 3D Movie Cinema, the only show that is 3 dimensions away from Fantastic Four First Steps being called The Fantastic Four. I'm your host 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Fantastic Four First Steps, released in 2025. Fantastic Four First Steps is directed by Matt Shankman and is written by Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, Jeff Kaplan, and Ian Springer. From a story by Kat Wood, Ian Springer, Jeff Kaplan, and Eric Pearson. The movie stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, Joseph Quinn, Julia Gardner, Sarah Niles, Mark Gatiss, Natasha Lyonne, Paul Walter Hauser, and Ralph Ineson. The movie is essentially a movie about the Fantastic Four, and it's the first chapter in their story arc, where essentially it's about 4 astronauts that go up to outer space. They get hit with a cosmic storm, they come back, and they're different and everything. And then, of course, years go by, and they're basically fighting crime, protecting the cities of the Earth, and they're basically governing over the city. And they're kind of like the world leaders of the planet. And they basically fight crime, they try to govern for peace, and then on top of that, they're trying to raise a family, and trying to be, normal. When I first heard they were making a Fantastic Four movie, I was kind of skeptical because I'm a huge fan of the Fantastic Four, and I feel like every time they try to make one, it's never good. I remember I love the 2005 film and the 2007 sequel. I know people, me and my Small Zero co-host, we really, really argue about that all the time because my friend Matt does not like the movies. Ryan's mixed on them. And so, and we all universally hate the 2015 movie. And so this movie was the first time we all three agreed that this was a great movie. And I really, enjoyed this movie. And I remember sitting in the theater watching this movie, and it felt like I was back in 2007 when I was watching Rise of the Silver Surfer. Like, I was just blown away because I'm a huge Rise of the Silver Surfer and 2005 Fantastic Four Defender. I love those movies. They were part of my childhood. That was my introduction to the Fantastic Four as a kid, because I was growing up as a little kid watching these movies. So I was like, just a little kid going to elementary school watching Fantastic Four, and so, but then seeing this like on the big screen, and it feels closer to those tones of movies rather than like the 2015 garbage movie. And I was watching this going, wow, because. I was just amazed. Like, I love this fictional city that they created around. Like, oh my God, feels like the Jetsons, and it feels like Tomorrowland, and it feels like this new city that, I would love to explore. And, and everybody's dressed up. At first, when I saw the teaser back at Comic-Con teaser last year, I was like, is this going to be like Speed Racer, where everything is like digital and all that? And thank God it wasn't, because I was like, oh my God, please don't be like Speed Racer. Because I like Speed Racer, but I feel like sometimes it's over the top and goofy, and it just feels like it's all a soundstage. And it didn't feel that way to me. When I was watching this, I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's all on a soundstage. It feels actually like it's like, if you would have told me this whole movie was shot in New York City, I would believe you, because this is actually really well done. I love the fact that we have, the thing that looks comic accurate. Even though I like Michael Chiklis, and I own a Michael Chiklis action figure of the Thing, I really like what Ebon Moss-Bachrach did as the Thing, because I've always loved that character. He is literally a character I just thought was so cool. As a kid growing up, I would play with that figure a lot, and, the cartoon was on, and I'd watch it and everything, and I literally own omnibuses of the Fantastic Four, and so to see the Thing actually with the eyebrows, I'm like, that's so cool. I know they tried to do it in 2015, but it just didn't work. And I know they had the 90s one. And I will say this, as a kid growing up, I never saw the 90s one until later on in my life when I was a teenager. And I still that's the most comic book accurate version of Doctor Doom we've ever gotten. I do enjoy what Julian McMahon did in the 2005 and 2007 movie. And I also do like, there are ideas and mass aspects I like about the 2015 movie, but I don't like it ultimately. This movie, I felt like it did everything on paper right, but there are a few nitpicks I had. One thing was, I kind of feel like they should have done Mole Man as the main villain first, because I feel like it sets it up like, okay, they're established already, because they do a montage of them saving the day and stopping Red Ghost and fighting monkeys, and then on top of that, Mole Man duping Mole Man and stuff like that. And I'm like, I would love to have seen them fight Mole Man first, and then maybe in the sequel do Galactus Silver Surfer. But I'm like, at first when I heard they're making, Galactus is going to be the main villain and Silver Surfer, I was like, okay, maybe they're just adjusting it for a doomsday. Like this is like, oh, it's going to end with Galactus devouring their world, and they get sucked into a wormhole, and they end up in like Earth 616, and they're in the MCU now. Nope, that's not what happens. And I'm like, I kind of was left confused. Like, okay, so then how does the Avengers Doomsday work? Because it's supposed to. The whole point was why is Galactus even here then? That's like a third villain movie, if you're going to do, okay? Like, why would you do it in the first movie? I mean, that's kind of like, it'd be like introducing Doomsday in the first Batman or the first Superman movie. And, it's like, why was Doomsday in the first movie when you just introduced Superman? It makes no sense. And I'm just like watching this going, Galactus is like an in-game villain. He's not a villain that you put in the first movie. I mean, like, this is a guy who can destroy and eat your world. Why would you put him in the first movie? And that was my big issue I have. I was like, I love Galactus. I do. I think Galactus is a cool character. I want a huge Funko Pop of Galactus and a Silver Surfer, little mini Silver Surfer. And I like the Silver Surfer. I just ordered a Silver Surfer statue from McFarlane for like $60. So I was like, I'm a huge fan of the Silver Surfer, and I love Galactus and Doctor Doom and all that. But I've always wanted to see Mole Man. I feel like they've done Galactus twice. This is the second time they've done Galactus now in Silver Surfer. They've done, Doctor Doom several times. I just want to see Mole Man once, in live action. And I got Paul Walter Hauser as Mole Man, but I wanted to see him as the main villain. I'm like, and I wanted to, I think it's cool that they recreated the comic book issue of the first appearance of the Fantastic Four. I thought that was cool when they fought the giant, the Giganto at the, I thought that was cool, and the Moloids and everything was cool seeing, and I'm like, that to me was excited. But when I was watching this, I'm just like, I kind of really, really wish though it would have been Mole Man as the main villain, and then at the end, in the second movie, we would have got that. But as for a story structure, the movie works, and I'm not going to hold that against the movie. That it was just not something. My expectations were different. I'm not holding that against the movie. From a story structure of this movie, I think the movie works, and them introducing Galactus and everything, I felt like, it does feel like, though, they set up the movie and everything, and once you get introduced to these characters, then they bring in, the best way to describe it is kind of like Man of Steel, how they do kind of like their mini origins. They do the origins, and then they do bring in Zod. It's kind of like that, or, Amazing Spider-Man, where they do, like, Peter's origins, and then this, because they say it's not an origin story, but, like, they kind of do the origins in the movie. Like, I mean, you can't say it's not. Yeah, like the whole movie isn't focused on origins, but they do like a montage of their origins of their, in the movie, and then like they do like a montage of them like saving the planet and everything, and then they're established, and then after they establish them and everything, then they introduce like Silver Surfer, which is Shabal and not Norman Rad, and I thought that was Shabal in the comics is a little bit different. It feels like they were trying to they just gender swap Norman Rad for Shabal, because there's some differences. But I understand maybe we'll meet Norman Rad down the road. But there really is no explanation why they chose Shabal over Norman Rad. The only thing I could think of is probably because they wanted Johnny Storm to have a love interest, and this is the closest they got. So I think that's the only reason why they did that, because Shabal in the comics is not. They basically just did Norman Rad, because I'm like, this is Norman Rad. The only difference is they just gender swap. Like, that's the only difference. And I'm like, really? I'm like, they're like, this is Shabal. It's not Norman Rad. But I'm like, it's still Norman Rad's origins, though. It's literally it's the same thing. Like, it's just like Shabal actually has a different origins in the comics. And I was waiting, like, and they just showed like they showed like the scenes of like Galactus' ship coming to her planet. They're just gonna devour, just about to devour her planet, and then like her being sucked up in there. And it almost, that scene reminded me of Transformers for some reason. I don't know if it's like the last night, I think, where like the giant, the Transformer shows up, and like it just looks so like, I'm like, that I like, though it does look real. Like, I like that it did look real. It didn't look fake, But I was like, that looks so much like a Transformer movie for some reason. But I thought, that was one of my nitpicks of the movie. And also, the fact is that I did not like, though, that, they're like, the fact is, like, I like that we're establishing these characters and everything. And I liked Reed Richards. Pedro Pascal, I've always said, is a great actor. I never had issues with him being overexposed or anything. I liked him in the movie. I liked Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm. I did not like him having a beard at the end. I thought it was kind of just cheesy and lame, because the Thing should not have a beard. I do like, though, like Galactus. I thought Galactus was great in the movie. Like, Galactus was so as I seen him in the movie. And I remember there's a scene where they're trying to keep Franklin Richards away from the Galactus, and and he's about to step, and when he sees the Franklin's little crib, and then he's about to stroller, he's about to go, and he's like, he looks around and he sees that Franklin's in the Baxter building, and he goes, "Clever little bugs." I thought that was great. I'm like, that's so cool, and everything. And I like how like their Galactus is so much of a big threat. And like I remember like this, and I thought that was so cool, like how Johnny was like, going to sacrifice himself. Like that is what Johnny is in the comics. I like what Chris Evans did in the 2007 and 2005 movie. I like that he's willing to like sacrifice himself. And I like that in this movie he's kind of like, he's funny, he's kind of goofy, but he's not like, like just a joking fest the whole movie. And I thought that was really great, that even though I like what Chris Evans did, I think Joseph Quinn did a great job as Johnny Storm, and I thought what he did was really great. I do think Pedro Pascal, I like what he did as Reed Richards. I mean, everything. I thought he was really great. I do kind of feel like he was a little shitty towards the child, like, well, I have to sacrifice the child to Galactus to save the planet. And it felt like when he's trying to rescue the child closer to the end of the movie, I'm like, do you even care to save this child? Because you were literally considering, like, well, it's in my head. I might have to. That's a possibility. I do like the whole chase sequence with the Silver Surfers chasing them through, like, the black holes and the wormholes. I thought that was great. I thought that was a great sequence and everything. And Herbie, the robot, is so cool. Herbie's, like, in everywhere. Like, it could do anything. It could, like, fly a ship, nurse. It could literally, change power, make dinner. It's just such cool, and I'm always glad that we finally got a Herbie, the robot. I know they teased it in the 2005 and 2007 movie, but I like that we finally got this in the movie. I also really like the fact is that, Ben Grimm, like, there's like a cartoon, and we get to see the cartoon, like, like a little cartoon nod in like the post credits and everything. And those are some great. And I thought the music and this thing, it did feel a lot like The Incredibles, but like in the Fantastic Four version, which I think is great. And I would love to see a sequel to this movie. I think it does open a lot of possibilities. The only thing I really had an issue with, besides what I said before, I think also the fact is that Galactus, the Silver Surfer is just like destroy. I love when she was destroying all the beacons, because their planning is they're going to bleep the Earth. And I'm like, oh, they're going to bleep the Earth is going to 616. And instead, no, it's like never happens. And I'm like, really? And then Silver Surfer, Johnny translates her message, because the whole movie he's flirting with her. He translates her message to she sees the death and destruction she's caused because of Galactus. And so basically she's like, oh no, I've done horrible things. And then she leaves. And then she at the end, when they defeat Galactus, he's coming through the portal again after Sue Storm sacrificed herself. Johnny's about to sacrifice himself. Then she comes through. Silver Surfer's like, I got this. And then knocks him back and goes through the portal with him. And I'm just like, that's so unearned. That is so unearned. I'm like, are you serious? Like, you just literally, fucked off, and then, like, you come back at the last minute. I'm like, that feels like a reshoot almost. Like, well, where did Silver Surfer go? We don't know. Like, I'm just like, oh, we'll bring her back and let her defeat Galactus herself. And I mean, that's like, I understand, like, I like the 2007 one better, the Silver Surfer, but I understand you can't compare. It's like apple and oranges. You can't compare, because that movie, that character had a little bigger screen time to develop the character versus this one, which is because they had so much going on, and that one they could literally, because it was a sequel, so they could just drop the character in at any time, versus this character where it's like, all right, we had to introduce the Fantastic Four, now we got to put the Silver Surfer in, now we got to put Galactus in. And that was really my only pet peeve, but I really enjoyed this movie a lot, and this is my favorite movie of the summer. And if I had to give this movie a grade, I'm going to give it an A. Thank you so much.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.